at the heart of our school communities. Our schools will not function without them and won't function without them. I mean, we're in a situation now of an indefinite strike. They're out. They started yesterday. They're out today. Local pickets will be starting next week, and the government really needs to move, Department of Public Expenditure, Department of Education, to recognise the equality of these workers and grant them that. The second thing is to say that on Sunday I'm going to be flying to Tunis in Tunisia and to join the global Sumud Flotilla, which will be leaving from Tunis on Thursday, the 4th of September. This is going to be the largest flotilla that we've ever seen, an attempt to break the siege of Gaza. There's participants from at least 44 countries. There's talk of about 50 boats going. I know that something like 28,000 people applied to participate in this flotilla, and I don't have the exact figures, but it seems to me that about 1,000 people are going to be sailing on these different boats. People like Greta Thunberg, Susan Sarandon, about 10 participants from Ireland are all uniting together and taking this action to try to bring food, try to bring medical supplies to the people of Gaza, because obviously, like anyone decent in the world, we are horrified at the unfolding nightmare worsening day by day for almost 2 years now in Gaza as Israel implements its genocide. We know that 60,000 people have been killed, more than 20,000 of them have been children, and right now what we've seen over the last number of months has been the creation of an Israeli created famine, recognised now by the UN, starving people. And on top of that starvation is the slaughter of tens of people almost every single day while they're queuing for food. And I think for Irish people in particular, there's an historical resonance. We had our own man-made, imperialist-made famine in this country 180 years ago, and I think people are just utterly horrified to see it getting worse. You have a situation now where originally Israel was denying it would ever target hospitals, now of course bombing hospitals with impunity, now double tap strikes designed to kill then the medics who arrive at the hospital and the journalists who arrive at the hospital. Close to 250 journalists have been murdered by Israel to stop the truth getting out. Truth has gotten out regardless. The truth is that Israel in its own mouths is now talking about a full-scale occupation of Gaza City, of Gaza as a whole. What does that mean after 2 years of genocide? It means completing the genocide, completing the ethnic cleansing, killing or expelling the remaining Palestinians. So that's why we are acting. We're acting, I think, in the context, and millions of people have acted in all sorts of ways, in the context of Western government complicity in this genocide. This could not be happening without the arms, without the funding, without the political support of the big Western powers, the US, the European Union, Germany, Britain, France, and many others. But also in this country, we have a government that correctly calls what's happening a genocide, but then does not act in line with it. So saying it's a genocide should mean you do everything in your power to stop that genocide, but instead we have a government that is seeking to water down the Occupied Territories Bill, a government that has known now, because of the work of the ditch for over a year, that there are flights illegally flying through our territory, bringing munitions to Israel, and the government has done precisely nothing about that. You have a report commissioned into it almost a year ago that is not repeated, and haven't taken the action which they can take, which is to prosecute these companies, and a government which opposed the stopping of the central bank authorising the sale of Israeli war bonds. So our own government is complicit, and what this action is about highlighting what's happening in Gaza, trying to bring relief, but also trying to bring pressure onto our own governments. It's shameful that ordinary people have to act in this way because of the failure of our own governments.
Gaza has just today been declared, Gaza City has been declared a combat zone, so that means that the humanitarian pause is just your reaction to Gaza City, such a densely populated area now, for
Yeah, I mean, I think what this is about, the declaration of Gaza City as a combat zone, is just preparation for and a justification for a stepping up by Israel of the ethnic cleansing. I mean, I think they're now committed to a project of not just Gaza City, effectively the entire Gaza Strip, clearing it out and incorporating it fully into Israel. You have to also look at what's happening in Gaza in the context of what they're doing in the West Bank, a further massive extension of settlements designed to prevent any viable Palestinian state. And the world can't just, which is what's currently happening in terms of the world's leaders, kind of lament this is happening, say it's bad, but then continue to fund Israel, continue to arm Israel, continue fundamentally to support Israel. This has to provoke action. And at the moment it hasn't provoked action by the world's leaders, but it has provoked actions by millions of ordinary people, hundreds of thousands of people in this country involved in all sorts of activism on a daily basis. There's going to be events throughout the weekend around the theme of from the rivers, from the seas, Palestine will be free, in solidarity with the flotilla. And I guess, our action is also aimed at calling on ordinary people to do whatever they can to bring pressure to bear on their own governments to stop this horror.
Just on a separate topic, just two questions on the presidential election. Firstly, what should Sinn Féin do in terms of whether it should support the left-leaning candidate, Catherine Connolly, or whether it should run its own candidate? In your view, what should it do?
Yeah, I mean, the first thing to say is, look, I respect Sinn Féin has its own internal process. That's right and proper, that they consult with their members and they make their own decision through their own democratic channels. But certainly what I think is the best for the left in this country, for Sinn Féin, and for the country as a whole, is that Sinn Féin would get behind Catherine Connolly's campaign, and I'm hopeful that they will do so. I think to have, a united campaign with many parties of the left coming in behind someone with Catherine's record of defending neutrality, of speaking up for the people of Palestine, for opposing the government's disastrous housing policies, the increasing inequality. I think Catherine has a real chance of victory here, and I think, that victory would have a number of significant implications. So, number one, the election itself, the defeat of establishment Fianna Fáil and Fine Gael candidates would be a blow to the government and their agenda, for example, of getting rid of, abolishing the triple lock and eradicating what is left of our neutrality. I think it would make a difference for the coming 7 years, where to have someone like we have had with Michael D. Higgins to be a principled voice, against oppression, defence of democracy, against inequality, will make a difference. But the other point I'd make, and I think should be in the minds of all progressive political parties, is that I think it would create a momentum behind the idea of a united left challenge facing into the next general election, and set things up whereby people will be clearly faced with a choice in the next election of you can continue with Fianna Fáil and Fine Gael and this crisis-ridden society that we have despite the wealth that exists in it, or here's an alternative and the potential for a left government.
Obviously Sinn Féin isn't the only major party yet to make a decision. The other one is Fianna Fáil. There may be a decision in the coming days, who even knows, maybe in the coming hours on that, about particular names going forward formally. So do you think all interested parties in this election should now just show their cards and decide who's going to run?
I mean, look, ultimately there's a nomination process, and that'll be a legal process, and the nominations will open, and people can't be made to nominate their candidates in advance. But what I would say is that we're probably less than 2 months now from the election. It is very, very close. And if you think about a general election, yes, the election itself might be 4 weeks or 5 weeks, but there's obviously a period of months, if not years, in the run up to it, where ordinary people have a chance to see, well, I like what that party's saying about that, I trust that party, I wouldn't trust that party, whatever. There's a process, and it seems to me it's not an ideal situation that candidates will be launched a matter of weeks before the election, and the public have the right to know what these people's views are, what their political records are, and to make a judgment about who would be the best president for us in the current circumstances.
I can just ask as well, Alan Kelly from the Labour Party, even though Labour have said they're going to support Catherine Connolly, he said himself he's not. Now, I know it's not like a Dáil vote, like he's in his own personal time doing that vote, but does the left, or is there any kind of murmurings about what that means? It's a bit kind of conflicting for such a kind of high-profile member of Labour Party to kind of speak out like that.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's a good thing for the Catherine Connolly campaign that Alan Kelly has said he's not supporting her. Alan Kelly is not associated with the positive heritage of the Labour Party established by James Connolly, standing up for workers' rights. Instead, what Alan Kelly is known for is government of Fine Gael, implementation of austerity, implementation of the water charges. So I think, you know, Alan Kelly saying he's not going to support Catherine Connolly is a big endorsement for Catherine Connolly, for all those who are opposed to Fianna Fáil, Fine Gael, and who want to see an alternative in this country.
I can just ask you one last question about, I don't know if you saw, the central bank released basically kind of the wealth of the first 3 months, and 10% of the households own, I think it's 48% of net wealth, and they just kind of brought up this debate about a wealth tax, but they're saying then people could move their money or leave the country. Like, how much do you think would it bring in, or do you think, because people are getting more, like the wealth has gone up 6 billion, like what can be done to kind of help with more equality? Yeah,
I mean, I think the report highlights the very deep inequality that exists in this country, and I think many people feel, you know, when you tell people Ireland's one of the richest countries in the world, people I speak to are kind of incredulous about that because they don't feel that. They feel that our healthcare system is in crisis. They know that there's 4,000 children growing up in hotel rooms, there's 15,000 people in emergency accommodation, the rents are through the roof, it's a cost of living crisis, people feel their wages can't catch up. So where is all this wealth? And this report helps to identify, well, the wealth is concentrated in quite a small number of hands. The top 10%, yes, but when you zone in on the top 1%, they have an enormous proportion of that wealth. And like, that's the fundamental problem. Like, that's the answer as to how we can have such a wealthy society and yet have so many social crises in our society. And the problem from our perspective is that we've had governments that have represented the interests of the top 10%, the top 1% in reality, as opposed to the interests of the vast majority. And we think we need to have a left government, an eco-socialist government, a government that puts the needs of ordinary people first. And I think crucial measures there is to, reject the idea that there's a taboo about talking about tax on wealth or talking about increasing tax on corporations. It suits those who are wealthy and powerful to say you simply cannot touch those things. We have to only ever hit ordinary people, because of the uncertainty in the world environment, we can't do electricity credits, but it's never because of the uncertainty in the world environment, we have to introduce a wealth tax, So we're going to be, we're finalising our own alternative budget at the moment, and front and centre will be the idea of a millionaire's tax, will be the idea of increasing tax on corporations. In other words, using some of the substantial wealth that exists in our country to the benefit of the majority.